Hey guys, welcome back to the Workbench. This is Dan here as always, and in this video I'm going to do my first official Locomotive review. Yes, that's right. And what we'll be reviewing today is a Genesis product that has just been recently announced and released from Athearn. And it's a pretty popular prototype right now. A lot of people are kind of into it, and they're, like I said, very popular right now. Pretty hot in the locomotive world. And I haven't seen anyone else really talk about or really even share photos of it or anything like that anywhere else. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity for me to go ahead and do a review of this particular prototype. And another thing that's also a plus for me and why I think I should go ahead and do this is because this will be my first time actually looking at a Genesis locomotive, so it'll be a simple, honest review, no bullshit, no lying, no covering up, no saying this product is great, buy it. It'll be honest, it'll be simple and to the point. No lies or anything like that, like I said. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get right into this. Alright, so here's the locomotive we're going to be reviewing today. This is an Athearn Genesis, like I said, recently announced IC&E GP40-2, number 4203, and this is in their run of 4 IC&E GP40-2s. And the reason these are so popular right now is because these 4 units were recently sold to, I believe, MEI in Illinois, and they were later sold to HLCX, and they are currently being leased on CSX, and I believe it's Indiana and Ohio, actually. Kind of around here in Ohio, especially where CN Summit. As a matter of fact, across the street from me, there's the 4211, which is currently based here in the yard in Fostoria, Ohio, and it's actually the unit that I'm going to be modeling with this. But I thought I would go ahead and review this locomotive before I do any other modifications to it. I want to show it just how it is, right out of the box. Like I said, simple and honest. So my first thoughts getting this, I think the box and the packaging on the Athearn Genesis products look really, really nice. It's very sharp, very sophisticated, and it almost is quality of brass, to be honest with you. It almost reminds me of that. And as we look at the packaging, it's all very nice. It's very well packaged, etc. And as we get to the front label here, you have all the info on the product. You have the computerized picture of the unit you're getting, the 4203, which is the one I ordered, and then you have the item number and the name and number of the locomotive. So this is also something that I think is really, really nice compared to, say, an Athearn RTR box, which just shows the product number and then the name of the locomotive and then the number. I definitely think that's nice. So without any other hindrances there in terms of that, we'll go ahead and open this up. Now, I know for a fact the Genesis boxes are a little hard to open up, and it might take me a second here to get this open because they are kind of tricky to open. And like I said, this is the first time I've opened it. I haven't really messed around with this, so I'm just going to do this in real time as fast as I can here and just try to get this open. Like I said, it's kind of tough to open, I believe. And as we get the lid off here, you can see the first thing you'll see is we have contents which are carefully packaged, and then you have your typical sign up for Athearn's newsletter, and this is just for product announcements and updates on what's going on in the company and all that. And then you got your join us on Facebook, YouTube, stuff like that, and then it shows your entire product line from Athearn. So nothing special there. And then you got something very important which you should always keep in these boxes is your limited warranty. Or your lifetime warranty rather, and this is just for anything. If your locomotive is not functioning right, if there's something wrong, if there's missing parts, you can send this in, you can get a replacement, and they'll take care of that for you. And it's always something that if you get one of these, you should keep, indeed. And then we'll put that aside, and then next you get your really nice color print GP40 series operator's manual and sound guide. And then what this is for is simply your, I'll zoom out here a little bit if I can. Try to get a better view of this, and this is simply your instruction manual. This goes through a little bit of a brief history of the GP40-2, which I think is really nice. It's a fun read, to be honest with you. I have not read this yet, but I'll definitely go back and read this later. And it's just basically information about the kind of variations of GP40-2s, kind of the history of the GP40 in general. And then you've got handling and maintenance next. And then as you go, you got your handling and maintenance again, and then you kind of get into the DCC and sound, which is right here, your manual on operating the certain features like horn, bell, whistle, etc. And then as you go through, this is a whole DCC and sound chart, and then as you get through there, you come up to here, and then you get into the exploded parts diagram here, where everything is kind of zoomed in on. You can kind of see a little better all the parts, which I think is also really nice and something that's very helpful, especially for someone like me who does a lot of kit bashing and modifying. When you can see kind of how things kind of disassemble, it's a little easier to disassemble the locomotive for, say, paint stripping or modifying, whichever. But as you go along, you kind of, again, they keep in mind that you're seeing several different variations of the GP40, from the standard cab version to the Canadian cab version, SP style windows, and then you get the different body styles, like say the early EMD to the late EMD body styles, handrail setups, and then they have all the variations of the hoods, as you can see here. Another nice feature. Very, very thorough. I like that. All the walkway details, handrails, all that. And then you get into, again, walkway features, handrails, and then you get into the, again, a little more walkway detail, and then you finally get into the mechanism, or really the guts of the locomotive, so to speak. And as you keep going, you get into fuel tanks, underframe, all that. And then finally, last but not least, the trucks. Taking apart trucks, maintaining, showing how all the parts go on, etc. And then again, you kind of get this nice color photo of a few variations of the GP40s that they're currently offering, including the SP version, the chassis system version, the Canadian Safe Cab version, and a Union Pacific version right there. So again, a very nice manual, very detailed, and I really do enjoy kind of reading through these, and you really should read through these too, because it's definitely kind of good to get affiliated with what you're working with, so that you're kind of, like I said, familiarized with your product. That's something I personally do. So next we got warranty information. Again, this is all affiliated with your warranty card. Again, if something's broken, you send this in, etc. But I really like the manual. Another very, very good idea from Athearn to have a really detailed manual like this, so that's good. So the first thing you'll notice as we get into the actual guts of the box and getting into the locomotive itself, you have a nice bit of foam covering up the top of the locomotive, keeping it safe and protected. We'll go ahead and carefully peel that off, and as we can see, there it is. What we have here is the ICE 4203, the GP40-2, the XSP unit, and we'll go ahead and carefully remove this out of the box. And the nice thing about the Genesis packaging is it's definitely an improvement. And actually, we'll go ahead and stop real quick, because I actually see something right here that looks like a part of some sort. Oh my. Well, first right out of the box, as you can see, what I found is what appears to be a windshield wiper. I know you can't really see it, but it looks like there's a windshield wiper right there. So that's a little concerning on my end. I'm a little concerned about that. It kind of looks like it probably got loosened up in transit, which is understandable. So, but that's what I'm guessing what happened, but we'll go ahead and set that aside. So that's the first thing I've noticed about this, and I'm a little concerned now. We'll go ahead and set that aside. We might be able to fix that later. So we'll go right back into this. We'll go ahead and slide the locomotive out of the packaging, which again, it's in a foam cradle, as you can see, so you have to be kind of a little patient with this, just kind of sliding it out. And as you kind of loosen it out, it starts to easily slide out of the packaging. And once again, I'm a little concerned again, because I'm seeing a whole multitude of detail parts at the bottom of the box. I'm not sure what this is here. I think this is a speed recorder cable or something like that, and I'm seeing a ditch light housing. I think this is from the high hood on the rear, and it looks like an air hose, and there's a sanding line there. We got two sanding lines. Oh shoot, yeah, we got two sanding lines now. I'll try to get this out if I can. It's kind of stuck in this little corner here though. As you can see, we got a sanding line. Another concerning issue, it looks like the trucks might have been damaged too, because I'm seeing a lot of truck detail parts coming off here, including pilot detail, so that's another concerning aspect. So we'll keep an eye on this. I'm just going to go ahead and take all these parts out. It looks like, again, speed recorder cable and an air hose came off the locomotive in the process of transit. Other than that, I'm not seeing anything else significant that might have come out of the box. I'll double check and go ahead and take the foam padding out. There's the ditch light housing. And again, I'm not seeing anything else that looks too serious. And I did find another sanding line right here. We got another sanding line. So my first thoughts of this locomotive is, damn, we're missing some parts. Okay, so obviously that's, like I said, a little concerning. We got a few missing parts right now. And as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and take this off the tripod. There's the pile of parts that came off the locomotive so far, so I'm a little concerned now. But we're going to just go ahead and take the locomotive out of the packaging and just carefully look at it to make sure nothing else is missing. Okay, so as we got the locomotive out of the packaging and out of the box, we'll go ahead and remove the plastic casing, which it is enclosed in, as you can see, for shipping. And my thoughts on this, it looks really good, and I'm pretty happy that Athearn went the extra mile to ensure that these stayed safe in shipping. But like I said, I did find some detail parts already missing off the locomotive. that were damaged in transit. So it's obviously still an issue of parts kind of falling off the locomotives. So, well, like I said, we'll go ahead and just get right into this, and we'll kind of watch for any other missing parts through the process. As I'm kind of looking over this, I can kind of see that there's some sort of little casing, just like the RTR line. You have this plastic casing on the outside which protects the basically the inner case. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. And then next you got this little flap here which you have to lift up, and then you move that, and then you got a piece of foam here, again for protection. And then we'll lift this tab off, and as you can see, we get to the locomotive itself, and we'll go ahead and remove it from the packaging very carefully. And as you can see, there's the rest of the packaging, and then you got a date and a serial number. So we'll go ahead and set this aside. Very nice packaging on the note, and we'll go ahead and get right into the locomotive. Alrighty, so here's the 4203 right out of the packaging, and as you can see, Athearn has done a very excellent job executing the detail. The printing and painting of the locomotive looks great, and overall it just looks really, really nice, and I'm very happy with it so far. And we'll go ahead and kind of get into a simple but detailed look into this locomotive. And like I said, I'll try to keep this as short as I can, and we'll go ahead and start from the front of the cab. As you can see, what we have here is we have sunshades, we have our operating cab windows, we have a full detailed cab interior including the control stand, seats, a panel on the back, very nice detail. You got your cab vent, and all the boxes on the side, the cabinets for batteries are well done. It looks like very detailed, as you can see. We'll zoom in on those a little bit. And then as we get to the top of the cab, you have an AC unit, you have the electrical cable, or the air line rather, running back from the air filter cabinet on the top to the end of the cab roof here. And then you have, I believe, an S5T style Leslie horn on the top as prototypically correct for this locomotive. And then as you get to the front of the nose here, you have the correct handbrake style, the toilet hatch on the top, handrails, various handrails applied, separately applied parts by the way, and then you got the correct nose light, which we'll go ahead and move on to. So as we look at the very side of the locomotive, as we can see here, we got very, very clean printing and lettering on the sides of the cab and the high hood. Very clean, very eligible, really good job execution-wise on that. You got all the warning labels for the fuel cutout, fuel fillers, all that's really well done. You got the correct weight filters for this particular style of GP40-2. I should note that this is a cotton belt version of the GP40-2, so there's a lot of modifications from a regular GP40-2 that you'll see on this, and I'll point them out as we go along because these are ex-cotton belt units that IC&E acquired, so that there's a lot of strange modifications on these that I'll point out, like I said, that you'll see that are a little different than an early GP40-2. So we'll go ahead and point those out as we go along. You got the correct air filter cabinet here, and then you got the etched metal steps. All this is correct for the locomotive, and then you got the very, very nice walkway tread plating, which is the diamond tread plate pattern, which is correct for this locomotive. Very nice door detail, hinge detail. Like I said, all the warning labels are very nice. And as we go along, you can see we got the late EMD blister for the dynamics, and then we got the late -2 series air filters, or rather the radiator grills for the locomotive as well. Very, very nicely done. Correct handrails, as you can see. These are slightly modified from a typical GP40-2. As you can see, you have a few more stanchions rather than a typical setup for this. And like I said, the cotton belt had a very interesting style and design for their GP40-2, so Athearn did an excellent job of modeling all these details correctly. And as we can see on the fuel tank, we got a nice set of fuel tank details. All the fuel filler gauges are painted very nicely. You got a little bit of fuel tank detail. And as you look at the trucks are nicely detailed. You got the sanding lines, everything's installed, and it looks really nice. We got sanding lines, we got a little bit of underbody piping, which I think is a very nice added touch. Athearn did an excellent job on that in my opinion so far, and really this locomotive is really looking good, but we still got lots more to cover, so we'll keep going here. Alright, as we look at the front of the nose here, you can see we got an excellent bit of detail on the front here. We got working anti-climber mounted ditch lights. We got an MU receptacle here, which is prototypically correct for this unit. You got the correct SP style large snowplow, MU cables, the coupler lift bars, which are painted yellow, which is also correct. We got our McHenry style knuckle coupler, which I personally like. You can easily change these out for Katie's, however. It's an easy fix there. The ditch lights do work, and they use the incandescent bulbs. Sorry guys, no LEDs yet. Me personally, on my thoughts on the incandescent bulbs, I don't personally have a problem with them because it's actually prototypical, if you think about it, how most railroads still use incandescent bulbs for their ditch lights and headlights. So I don't have any concerns there. You got the correct style of handrail for the front end there. As we look at the nose, you got the nose light and then the nose light cutouts here, and then you got the knockouts for what used to be class lights. You got your separately applied grab irons, and as we move on to the very top here in the section for the windows, you can see we got separately applied windshield wipers, and here you can see this is where the one windshield wiper went. I can see that already. You can see the pre-drilled hole. That's where that got missing, or it probably got loosened up in shipping, I'm assuming, but it would be an easy fix. You just have to pop those back in. You got to keep in mind when these parts are installed, they're not glued in place, they're just popped into their holes, and they can usually slide out really easily. Moving on, you got this light plate covering up the old headlight in between the number boards. The number boards are really well done. They look nice and clean, very well done, and they look really good. While I'm still at the nose here, before we move on, I want to point out something though that is incorrect for this particular prototype. On the ICE units, when they had the SP style nose lights on most of their GP40s, the chevron on the front of the nose matched the contour of this cutout. As you can see, the cutout on the nose right below the nose light itself has that angle. The chevron should match that angle on that cutout, but they don't, and that's kind of a little mistake there. I'm pretty certain this was a feature on all of the ICE GP40s, like I said, where it actually did in fact match that contour. You could fix that if you wanted to, if that was so much of a problem. If you really did have a problem with it, you could fix that relatively easily, simply by probably touching it up with a little paint, or maybe readjusting that angle slightly, or possibly even re-decaling the nose itself. That's kind of up to you. Me personally, I don't have a problem with it, and it's not that big a deal to me, but we'll go ahead and keep moving. Alright, and as we look at the rear high hood, you can see we got another nice bit of detailing here. We got the coupler lift bars also installed. We got the MU cables. We got again, a McHenry coupler. We got the airlines, which is another nice added touch. Recently, Athearn's been installing their airlines to not only the Genesis series, but also the RTR line. My thoughts on their air hoses, however, is that they're too short. Prototypically, these are very, very long, and they usually hang underneath the coupler. They're a little bit longer, so these are good to change out. And me personally, when I get a locomotive like this, the newer RTR units, I like to change these hoses out. But the MU cables themselves are nice, and they look good. You got working rear ditch lights, anti-climber mounted this time. And as you can see, here's the one missing ditch light. This is where the one ditch light goes, which I'll have to reinstall and glue back in place. But as you can see, the incandescent bulb is sticking there, so try to ignore that. You got the drop step on the front. You got the nicely detailed handrails here. Keep in mind these are Celcon plastic handrails, so they are very fragile, and you have to be very, very careful when handling those. So keep that in mind. You got the handrails, separately applied handrails on the very base of the pilot there, as you can see. Another nice added touch. It's a method of keeping the hoses in place so they're not hanging over each other. As we move up to the top, you can see we got another interesting feature on this unit is the very strange light package cluster on the back. And this was a very specific feature for the cotton belt units, was this interesting light package. And as you can see, it's just reduced to a headlight now, but here was the Mars light, the red light, and then I believe there was a gyro light next to it, is how it worked on this light package. And it's very, very interesting. Nice cutout details. Again, quite a few of the separately applied railings added. Very, very nice. It really looks nice. Clean printing, very eligible on the numbers and the ICE letters there on the chevron. Very, very nice. I do have to know, I do see a little bit of an overspray. Oops, sorry guys. Let it readjust. You can kind of see this little bit of a blur here. At the very top of the chevron, you can see a little bit of yellow overspray on the blue. A little disappointing there, but that can be fixed relatively easily if you touch up with a little paint. So not too big of a deal there, but a little disappointing. You can see we got our lift rings also on the high hood here. Another nice detail. You can see these very, very microscopic sized, prototypically correct lift rings, as you can see. Very, very nice, like those. So there's the rear end of the locomotive. We'll go ahead and move on to the engineer side. And on the engineer side of the locomotive here, we got, again, very nice walkway tread detail, full fuel tank detail, piping. We got the knuckle brackets on the trucks, correctly appropriate for this particular prototype. Some of them had the coupler or the spare knuckle brackets on the rear of the locomotive, and others had them on the trucks. I think some of these, when they got shopped, they ended up putting the knuckle brackets, however, on the rear of the locomotive. So this is a detail I'll have to change myself as I modify this unit to be an HLCX unit. I'll have to change that, but for modeling it right out of the box as an IC&E unit, it's all correct and it looks really nice. You got all the appropriate lettering, all the safety appliances are labeled and everything, and it all looks very clean, very crisp lettering on all that. Again, very nice in-cab detail. You can see the cab interior. If I zoom in real quick here, you can see that very, very nice bit of detail, if it can adjust actually. There you go, you can kind of see that. We got our sunshade again, we got the operating cab windows, another nice feature, very, very nice, and then you got the correct style of simplified rear view mirrors on this as well. So that's another nice feature. And as we look at the high hood itself again, you can see pretty much the same on this side, nothing relatively changed other than the fact that this side does not have the air filter ductwork on this side. You got the correct grills, correct dynamics, the air filter is correct, and then everything else looks really, really good. Good door detail, everything looks really nice. On this side again though, you do have a little bit of modified truck detail, say compared to the opposite side. You got a speed recorder on this side of the locomotive, which is also prototypically correct, and then you got another knuckle bracket here labeled E. And even on the knuckle bracket itself, you can see very, very clean, crisp printing, as you can see. I know I can't really zoom in too well, but you can kind of see it, but it really does look good, and they did an excellent job on that. Everything else on this locomotive looks really, really nice, and I'm so far very, very happy with it. So we'll go ahead and move on to the very top of the locomotive itself. Now, as we look at the very top of the locomotive, we'll start at the radiator section. You can see we got the sand hatch in the correct location. We got multiple separately applied grab irons and lift rings, all appropriate for this prototype. The cotton belt units were late GP40s, so they had the Q fans installed, which are well executed as well. Nice grill and depth effects. You got the see-through grills, like I said. You got the fan blades, you can see, very, very nice. You got all those nice lift rings installed. As you get to the dynamic fan, you can see it's completely see-through. You got the nice grill and fan effects, very well done. And then you got the exhaust silencer as well, another nice feature, very well done, lots of depth to that. And then as you move on to the air filter, you got the correct SP cotton belt style tray for the antennas, which is also very well done. And you got the correct Sinclair style antenna there. Very nicely done. And as you can see, we move on. You can see we got the AC unit and the horn and the air line running on the cab roof, all very well done. And overall, the detail on this locomotive is amazing and it looks great. Alright, some other thoughts on this locomotive that I want to go over real quick. Like I said, we did find a few missing parts off this, but it is understandable, as most of the parts on a locomotive like this are not actually installed. They're just pressed in place, and a lot of times I've seen them wiggle out of place or fall out of the packaging when it's removed from the packaging itself. And you got to keep in mind, like I said, and this can also apply to not just Athearn but also Walthers and Atlas. When they install most of their detail parts, they're not glued in place. They're just pressed in place. You can easily remove them. Anything on this locomotive, really, in general, you can just pop off. The handrails you can just remove easily. The snowplow you can pop right off. The handrails, like I said, most of the grab irons just pop right out. Horn, AC unit, that's all removable. And you got to keep that in mind. And something I also wanted to mention, because a lot of people have been kind of comparing like plastic models to brass. Well, you got to keep in mind something with brass. Brass models, when they're assembled, they're hand assembled and everything is soldered in place, so they're not going anywhere. Or else they're C8 in place, again, not going anywhere. Compared to a plastic model, which everything is just hand installed. You got to keep that in mind, and I think that's kind of an unfair comparison, to be honest with you, in terms of comparing brass to plastic in that sense of detail. You got to remember, brass is soldered, plastic is just popped in place. And me personally, I don't have a problem with this. I mean, also in terms of brass, this is a pretty much brass quality. It's such great detail compared to a few years ago when we did not see this much detail in a locomotive. And the only way you could get that much detail in a locomotive is to buy brass. So I would cut them some slack on that aspect. If you want to buy brass, that's up to you. But personally, like, I don't have a problem with buying plastic models, and I think it looks great. Getting back to the locomotive itself, Athearn did an excellent job overall. The locomotive is equipped with the improved Genesis CAN motor. It runs very well. It has great pulling power, and it has quite a bit of weight to it as well, which improves traction. So weight-wise, it's a really good locomotive for pulling, and that's something that really comes in handy for that, in that sense, that I find. So overall, again, the locomotive looks great. We'll go ahead and touch on some lighted features on this as well. Keep in mind, I bought a DC model here, so you got to remember everything here is pretty much bi-directional. You don't really have too much control with the lighting on this locomotive, being that it's all straight DC. Basically, when you throttle it up, all you do is light up the ditch lights and the headlight on the front, and that's all adjusted with DC. When it runs, they just light up and then they turn off as you kind of throttle down. And it's the same on the rear. The only way you can really do anything with this is if you installed a DC decoder and took full advantage of those lighted effects. And that's one of the advantages of using DCC, which I did mention in another video, that I will be switching most of my locomotives to DCC in the near future. But for now, as I kind of keep them in storage for now, I'm not really in any sort of hurry to do that. Right now, I'm happy with the DC model, and I bought the DC model in the first place to kind of keep things cheap. This locomotive retails average for $139.95. I checked most of the prices, and that's pretty accurate. I actually happened to get this one on eBay from a hobby shop. I believe Vandilla Hobbies. I forget where they are, but I believe they're in New Jersey, and I got this for $130 total with $6 shipping. So overall, it wasn't too bad of an investment, and in my opinion, it was definitely worth it. Overall, again, Athearn did an excellent job, and if you want one of these, get one. So that pretty much wraps the review up, and like I said, anything Athearn Genesis, it really is nice, and it really is close to brass quality. I'm really happy with Athearn's improvement in detail and quality, and I'm always excited to see new products like this come out. It's always exciting, and it's definitely even more exciting to think what could be coming out in the near future. So hopefully Athearn keeps up with this, and I'm sure I'll be reviewing some more locomotives in the future. But for now, hopefully this covers a few things, and hopefully this answers a few questions to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So until next time, take care.